Welcome to the February 7th Ways and Means meeting. And I don't see anyone here for public participation, so we'll get right into it, which is the FY25 budget overview and presentation. Paul or John?
I'm just trying to sign in so I can share the slides.
Very good. All right, and while he's signing in, you should have received an email about half an hour ago from John with the secret password and login name.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As is typical at this meeting, we call it the drop and run meeting. So please don't open your budget books because we have a couple of months to go through those, so we don't want to go through them tonight and the rest of the spring.
We'll try to hold back on our devastatingly covered questioning.
John's got a few slides to go over sort of as an overview, and we can take it from there.
Excellent.
Paul wants to get out of here early, I can see.
Super Bowl's not till Sunday, you don't have to rush.
Are all the budgets in here, or are we waiting on any?
I believe that most of them are in there. Maybe some of the accommodated may be missing.
Okay.
Yep. Roger, you mind if I email you this and you can, John, you can share?
Send it to Doug.
Send it to Doug.
That'd be great.
I got on earlier, but now I can't connect.
It's just one personnel update. We spoke to Whitney this week, and she will not be rejoining us,
Oh, that's too bad.
unfortunately. So we're going to be a person down
Well, but good for
for
her.
a while.
So who does Town Hall 2 talk to for sealer of weights and measures?
Yeah, you could come right in and talk to us on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Schedule a couple of hours.
You have to go over to that cabinet for the weights and measures exhibit. I think they have like the original, kilogram mass from France in there or something.
We'll take the tour.
Pick the font.
Zoom in, Roger. Zoom in. Is that made it all the way over to you yet? Or?
It's a long shot over here.
Has to go to Google and back.
That's right, it's crawling along.
So while we wait to we wait on Doug. At the last meeting, we went over the guidelines. And tonight we're here just to, as Paul said, a dump and run to sort of share the initial budget docs. We have a few slides that are just kind of the high-level overview summary. Obviously, you get into the details with each of the department heads, and we wouldn't want to steal any of their thunder or their spotlight going through all of that.
Getting close.
I guess we should all open our budget books then and start asking questions.
Start asking Paul questions.
Remember when we did the guidelines?
The good news is, while we're waiting, I did look at the scorecard, and it looks like, at least right now, we're right on the guidelines. So
Yep.
no pressure on the schools, but it's up to them not to screw it up.
So when we did the guidelines, thanks Doug, we came away from there, sort of consensus was that the operating budget for the town and the school would be, the target would be 4.5%. And then we thought the upper limit of the accommodated would be 7%, but expect it to come in a little less than that. So I can tell you that what was submitted in your binders tonight, you'll see that the town operating is submitted within the guidelines, actually a little bit less than the guidelines. It's pretty much level service-ish. We would call it level service. Some may say that it's a little less than that. And what it includes is the collective bargaining agreements for all the unions. Also included in negotiated settlements, just like last year, is what we expect for the A&P, because they're not a union, so we have to do that each year. So you see in the department budgets, it does include their specific A&P increases, and instead that is all housed in the negotiated settlements, which we do every year. The school operating budget, which the guideline was set around 4.5, is still a little while before, they're sort of just getting to that process now. They did capital first, which was, better for us, and I think fit into the schedule a little better. So we won't hear from that for a while, but they have some expiring labor contracts and transportation contract that they're gonna need to work with. And as I said, our target for the accommodated was between 6 and 7, with 7 being the upper limit. We're not totally there yet. We have the same typical drivers that we do every year, but we're tracking as expected, a little bit better than that. Those drivers are, you can see them on the slide, or maybe you can't. So, but we'll talk about them more on a different slide anyway. So for the we're right on now, Doug.
I'm trying, man. It is
So
not
for
much.
the town operating budget, almost all department heads, cost centers include only contractual obligations. That, as you can see, there's a list of 6 cost centers there that were over the guidelines. The first 3 of them are smaller budgets, where even a small dollar amount can be a large percentage, given the amount that the budgets are so small. You can see the list there. A board of registrars, central administration, and disability access all seem like high percentages, but dollar amount, they're not that much. In fact, the disability access at 17.36% is $175. So it's over guidelines by $35. How dare they? And then registrars is 2 small changes. One's to mail, and one's to a request for an additional stipend for some work. But you can get into that with Amy when she comes. The central administration, the number looks big. It's that budget is where we kind of buy all the stuff, all this stuff, and we haven't increased that budget since 2012. So percent-wise, it's big, but it's sort of a kind of a catch-up, and it's needed now. The other 3 listed below there are 3 departments. You can see that they're the only 3 that are over guidelines. The clerk, again, you can talk to Amy, but that is directly related to an additional election next year, one more than they have this year, so that's a big hit. I think they budget like around $30,000 for an election. So that's why the percentage is out of whack. And then in DPW, I can tell you, you'll hear a lot about purchasing water because of PFAS, purchasing water, more of it and sooner than we had anticipated, with PFAS throwing us out of whack. Next slide, Doug. For headcount, there's no new FTEs in what was proposed by the town. The headcount is the exact same. What will change is that ARPA is expiring during this next fiscal year, and you may remember that we've dedicated a little bit of funds in the operating budget towards mental health at the police station and the youth and family. So we're absorbing a little bit of that in the operating budget, so not technically a new FTE, but new to the operating. So we'll work with those subcommittees to decide how we want to show that, whether we want to do the new FTE sheet, or you should reuse the ones we used last year or whatnot. And then another cost that's in the operating budgets as offset with ARPA is WebEx, what we're using now. It's not an FTE, shouldn't really be on this page, but I just wanted to point it out because it's not going away. ARPA's going away, but those needs aren't going away. The same with the mental health. The amount we're dedicating towards mental health, ARPA's going away, but those needs aren't going away either. So altogether, that's a small number. I think it's about $50,000 in total. But just wanted to point it out. The next line is for accommodated or undistributed accounts. I think everybody here knows what accommodated is. So it's not complete yet, as I said, but we're tracking in the right direction. The budget drivers are, what they usually are. OPEB, we're funding it based on the plan that's been in place for a while. That's up to over $1 million now, so 9.3% on $1 million. Middlesex retirement, again, it's funded directly from the actuarial study. We know what that is every 2 years, but that's That's a big number, it's a $14 million budget, so it's $1 million increase just for us to stay on that schedule. Debt service, we're still finalizing and massaging that as we continue to get more, as the capital requests have finalized. There's quite a few that haven't been on there in the past. So we're trying to massage that and figure out where we want to land for next year to be able to pay off any bans that are rolling and have the operating budget, kind of the smoothing out effect we always talk about, so we don't, not increase it one year and then have a 2 times increase next year. So we'll talk a lot about that as we move forward with Town Hall 1 especially. I think the debt service conversation is gonna take on a life of its own, given what's coming up as far as building projects and lots of water things that we talk about, or field things that we talk about in the future. And then health insurance, the percentage isn't huge, it's right on what the guidelines is, but the budget's $17 million, so when that goes up 4.5%, the number is pretty high. So that hasn't been finalized either, but we expect it to be as soon as Gary gets back. What's open items, you'll notice if you saw the scorecard, the open items are highlighted in yellow to try to just identify what we're still kind of working on, but there's a list of them. School budget, as we talked about, we're probably still 5-6 weeks away from that. The regional school assessment, hot off the presses we got today, but that hasn't been voted by their school committee, but there's some good news there, so hopefully that's gets passed. The non-member regional school assessments, those have come, used to be quite a bit of money, they've come down over the last couple of years, but that is mid-April when we'll find out. We'll know how many have applied long before that, but we won't know how many got in. This is for pretty much just Essex Tech now, because Minuteman still isn't taking non-members at this time. So it's not a huge number anyway, but we'll keep tracking it, and we expect, if anything, it's probably gonna go down from what we have in the budget. And then the big one, special ed tuition and transportation. Hopefully we're not that far out from getting an estimate on that. That was a big one for us last year. OSD had made up for some years of really slim increases to last year. If you remember, it was about 14% allowable increase, and then that account is just volatile anyway with people moving in or needs changing or placements changing. So that one can be a little tricky, and if things change, can cause a big problem. So what's the bottom line? We're right in the range we expected, the range we talk about, trying to get the levy to grow between 4.5 and 5.5. We're gonna come in right in there, depending on where the accommodated or the school budget comes in. We expect to be in a real good position with that. And what's listed is just what the guidelines recommendations were. So again, just wanted to give sort of a high-level view of nothing's really changed since we talked about the guidelines. Now you have it in your hands, and now comes the hard work, I guess. Happy to answer any other questions.
Any comments or questions on that? Frank?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to double check, gentlemen, on the debt service that you've plugged into the accommodated account. You've got a number in there based on, I guess, existing debt.
So we have a plug number, Frank. It won't be higher than that. So we have probably the high level number of about 9.1 million.
Okay, and you're not assuming any new debt in this fiscal year?
So it assumes
Rolling new bonds?
it assumes a payment for those. It assumes
For the existing ones?
for anything that's a ban now, or anything
Right,
that's
right.
has already been approved,
Right.
or is being proposed for next year. It assumes a payment of some sort for all of them.
Okay, and really, so in FY '24, you're assuming payments on new projects?
For our FY '25 proposed budget,
25, right?
yes, we assume that
Right.
if everything gets approved at town meeting, that we'll need to if we borrow the money, we need to make a payment. So for FY '25 payments is bans that are coming due this April. For anything for '25 is if we're gonna borrow it in July, say.
We'll put a
we would
ban
have
in.
to get a payment, yeah.
Okay, and are you assuming the use of any free cash any of those debt encumbrances that you're projecting?
Not as yet. So we have a earmark of like 5.5 million for our pay-as-you-go capital.
Right.
And then for
But
actually
those
keeping
are
off
warrant
the.
articles, so they're not in the operating budget.
Correct.
But in
Keeping
the
off the debt
operating-
schedule, we have not assigned any of those to be paid
Yeah,
by free cash
okay.
yet.
So that's something we'll take up probably with Town Hall 1 on
Yes.
auxiliary uses of free cash as offsets.
Yeah, and one of
So-
the reasons why our debt service budget doesn't get done till the end is because we'd like to know what we're gonna keep off the schedule as far as how much free cash we're gonna use to keep that stuff off the
Right,
schedule. so we
right,
can
we'll figure
net
that out. But the reason I'm asking is, for everyone's benefit, is the accommodated account, we're trying to stay no more than 7%, and that includes debt service, all the debt service.
Yep.
So to whatever extent, we either can use some free cash to lower that, or we have a problem with debt, the free cash is there if we need it. And we're yet to discuss that, okay. Thank you.
Okay, other questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That range of target levy seems pretty wide. You know, a percentage point on the size of the budget is a lot of money. I mean, I know this was decided a while ago, but why is the range so wide? Just giving ourselves a lot of latitude, or is there a lot of uncertainty?
It's sort of where we've landed over the past several years within that range. That sort of levy target has shifted over the years. I hate to always embarrass him by bringing it up. Old frugal Ways and Means Chair Hardy back in the day, and Bond over here on the right. I think the levy increases were a little bit more modest back then, and as the demands of the community and the requests for services have increased over the years in a variety of different areas, as well as, uncontrollable costs. I think that levy percentage has creeped up over time.
Yep, all right. I mean, it's a bit worrisome, obviously, because this compounds year over year.
Worried about the implications of how I'll be remembered.
Oh, you'll be remembered.
Thank you.
We're worried about how we're gonna forget.
I'm sure these guys will tell you it was a long time ago. It was.
Anything else on that? Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sorry, one other thing I want to ask, I think at this point, are you giving any consideration for starting to figure out an enterprise fund for water in FY '25?
We're committed to starting that conversation with the Ways and Means Committee. So we've already talked to Brian, just to tell him to, be prepared that we're gonna be having that discussion. I think as you had indicated at a previous meeting, we can discuss enterprise fund. We don't have to decide to fully fund through enterprise fund. We can sort of work our way to get full cost recovery on water and sewer. We don't have to go from 0 to 100. I think if we went to full enterprise fund, it would have a positive impact on the operating budget, obviously, but the water rates would go through the roof. So again, it's a way of calculating what the actual cost of water sewer is and passing it on for the actual, usage of those things. And, like I say, a skeptical person may say, this is just an accounting mechanism for you guys to spend more money in the operating budget and get more money for water and sewer. So I think that we're gonna have a great discussion. I think it's one of the things when I first came to work here 18 years ago, I said, this is a really odd way to account for water and sewer compared to how other communities do it. So they're subsidized by the general fund. I do think it's a very worthwhile discussion for us to have, but I think we'll have to be, again, pretty strategic about how we implement it going forward and, how we explain it to the public in terms of what's going on. So we're happy, looking forward to having that discussion.
Okay, and as you pointed out, we could start the enterprise fund tomorrow and still subsidize it the same
Same way
amount.
we're- yes.
It doesn't have to imply anything about water rates. It can just be an accounting thing at the beginning and set us up for however we
Absolutely.
want to go.
So are you thinking after the May town meeting to engage in those discussions?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense, I think.
Yep.
That way I don't,
Yeah, it'll take some
Come up-
time, and we'll have to
come
sink
up
our
with
teeth
words, yeah.
into it and take some time
Right,
to
thank
sort
you.
of understand what's happening, and, you know, I think the timing will be right. You know, we have the way that we're handling the MWRA Water Stabilization Fund. At some point in time, it becomes all water revenue and all expenses. I think we've done a great job in keeping those items separate so that we can demonstrate to the public that we're sticking to the plan. And I think that that's worked well for that purpose, but I think we can eliminate those two articles at a town meeting, because at some point in the future, it's just the water operation, and all the money coming in is water revenue, and all the expenses come out are water expenses, as opposed to, you know, we wanted to be able to prove the MWRA portion of it in terms of what we spent versus, you know, the original proposed plan for raising the rates for the MWRA project. So I think it's worked well from that standpoint.
And you've done a good job sticking to that plan.
Good.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else on that, I put an item in on debt update. I know John is close to getting the plan together, and was going to coordinate with what I call Town Hall One and Friends to continue the discussion on the whole debt service. Did either of you want to give an update on anything there, or?
I don't really have anything to add. I know that, I think, well, the committee's probably not aware of it, so John is working through all of the updates for capital expenses to make that more current and better than just random, you know, stuff on the schedule. And so that will be part of the update we'll get. And I think you're still working towards getting more of the school stuff in there, but that'll be what we'll see. Maybe we'll meet, I don't know, probably sometime in February, I think, right?
Yeah, I hope by the end of February, we'll be able, you know, we'll have everything, and we'll have been able to have a meeting and kind of decide how we want to display and what information is
Right.
going to be helpful for
So
people.
the only update is that they're getting closer.
And the school is voting next week on their their 10-year capital plan, I believe, so we should have it by the end of next week, and we can incorporate it into what we already have and sort of go over the final product internally, and then with the Town Hall One and Friends.
Great, yeah, as soon as you're ready, please, contact Frank and David on that. I'll throw in one small update, which is, because I had too much spare time, I've been working on our spreadsheet. So one of the things, I think part of this big debate here is the whole, when or if the excess levy disappears under various scenarios. And I think the interesting thing, at least that I'm seeing, and I've been talking with Frank on this a little bit, is that the how we model the growth is like the single biggest factor. So, we have some ideas on, various ways to do that, so that would be a good thing to discuss. And I'll forward that spreadsheet on to you guys so you can take a look at that too. But depending on whether you model as constant dollars or constant percent of levy or whatever, can really change the answer to that. So we'll see what we can all get comfortable with on that. Okay, so everything good on debt here?
I think so.
All right, then I think our last item is I did put in other budget items just in case there is anything else. I don't think there is. Okay, good. Then we're just on to approval of the minutes. So
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Thanks, John. So we have our minutes that I sent around earlier from the January 10th meeting. I didn't see any updates. Does anyone else have any comments on those before we vote?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Thank you. All right. We have no one. Who's Mike?
Is that you, Mike?
Yeah, that's me.
You're just trying to screw me up, aren't you?
You can't vote twice, Mike.
You only get the vote once.
That's his WebEx doppelganger.
All right, those in favor of approving the January 10th meeting minutes, please raise your hand. Cheater. 6, 7, 8. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, so that is not adding up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1.
801.
801, but who, hold on, there's, somebody slipped out here.
It's just your accounting, it's not the,
Yeah, my,
it's not the real world, it's just your,
no, the spreadsheet has to be right.
in the end, yes.
He's doing it in octal.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yes, okay, that's an abstain there. So 801, and I'll figure out where my missing thing is in a moment. Okay, very good, thank you. So that passes 801. Do we have anything else for the meeting before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourned.